Welcome to another episode of the Ultimate Intimacy Podcast. And today I'm just flying solo. No, Amy didn't leave me, but she was tied up today. So we apologize. You're getting the worst part of the McKinleys on this podcast, but we're excited to have Austin on with us today. And today we're going to talk about what people can expect when going to a therapist or going to you. We have a lot of people reach out to us. Many of them have not been to a therapist. They're kind of worried about what to expect or what's going to go on, how to get their spouse on board. So we just thought it would be a great episode to kind of give people insight as to what something would look like when, meeting with someone like yourself, Austin. So thanks for
Yeah,
joining us.
yeah, you're welcome. So I, me and my wife had gone to couples therapy before I decided to become a therapist. We were actually seeing a couples therapist at the time, and it's cool because he kind of guided me on, some of my interests and things. And one thing, that I would share to people when the question is like, when should we go? I would say sooner than you think. Okay. Most people truly wait until they're like at the end of their relationship, like
Yeah.
they're on the brink of divorce, and there's so many things that we then have to do in therapy that we could have done earlier that would have prevented a lot of pain. And so it's not uncommon truly for me to be like, the fifth, sixth therapist or whatever. And a lot of times what I share in there is I said, you've been getting good things. They might not have been sequenced the right way, or there's typically a core component missing that when we get that, things shift into place and couples can reconnect. And so it's interesting because a lot of people think of therapy, there's a stigma around it, around, broken people go to therapy.
Yeah,
I often
exactly.
tell people, yeah, I often tell people like looking at it not even as therapy, but like healthy marriage coaching that's customized to you, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Well, let me say this real
yeah,
quick, not to
yeah,
cut off, but I used to play golf a lot, right?
mhm,
And I would go to an instructor not to necessarily, fix certain things, but I would constantly go to my instructor to improve my game and make my game better. I would go to a sports psychologist to make my mental part of my game a lot better. Like we do a lot of these things to improve, and I think sometimes therapy is no different. In fact, I had a good friend that was a therapist that I remember talking to, and he says, "Well, about half of my clients are have really good marriages."
right.
And you're exactly right. Like a lot of times we think, oh, our marriage has to be in a really bad place for us to go to the therapist. But no, one of the things that a therapist or you can do is help people or help people, I guess, with the tools to have
Right.
a better marriage. And we've seen that firsthand, not to get off. Sorry, I kind of cut you off, then I'll let you get
No,
back
you're
on.
right.
But I think this is good. Austin we were introduced to Austin through Amy's and I's really good friends, and they were, on their second marriage, had kind of walked away, looking like that marriage was going to end. And now they have one of the happiest marriages we've ever seen. And it was because Austin was able to give them the tools to use in their marriage to to be able to have the marriage that they wanted. And so I just wanted to
No,
point
you're
that
good.
out
Yeah, that's
that
helpful.
um, sometimes we often think, oh, our marriage has to be in a bad place. And for many people, like you said, Austin, they do wait till that point. But, um,
Right.
why
Yeah.
would we not invest in something that can help our marriage, just like we invest in so many other things in our life to help us get better at a certain sport or music or what have you?
Right. Yeah, I think that idea of like a gym membership is a good analogy. Like as someone that became a therapist, like I became a therapist because we were off. We were not working. I was struggling with different things, and the idea was like there's people that know how to do this thing. Now, nobody teaches us one how to do marriage well, but certainly nobody teaches us how to repair a damaged relationship. That's what therapists know how to do. They know how to guide you to repair your marriage. And so, right, if you have a broken something in your home or your car, you go to someone that knows how to fix it. I don't know how to fix my car. I'm probably,
Yeah.
not going to take the time to learn that. And this is something I try to do with my clients. I have skills that I can help you repair, and that happens with me. And then I also have knowledge and tools that you can use so it doesn't break again. So you can build what you want to build, and then you maintain it, and then you don't need couples therapy anymore. I tell people all the time, like the statistics on this are like we should do something as a society. The statistics are that those who do premarital couples counseling before they get married, not only are the divorce rates very low, the level of marital satisfaction long term are high, right? And so when we know going in what to expect, that we're going to hit challenges and husband and wife prepare against them when they're still
Yeah.
connected in love, they're less likely to get torn apart. A lot of marriage therapy, because people wait so long, we do have to go through a repair process. Each person's nervous system is typically hijacked and they go into fight or flight and they react and they fight. That's healable. Like we can
Mhm.
recalibrate that. We can help couples reconnect, and that happens in session, where the connection happens there. It's not we're gonna tell you about it and you go do it there at your house or whatever. It's we're gonna help you do it with us. We're gonna help regulate the emotions and help heal that reactive pattern. Every couple comes in with a pattern. It's human nature.
Yeah.
And therapists, we see the pattern and we know how to help intervene. And then we're helping train you to feel confident with one another. So, very frequently, we start with safety, both safety here, but how do you create safety between the two of you? We call it de-escalating the conflict or the source of struggle. Oftentimes, we're trying to re-engage someone into the relationship because the person that goes into the flight, okay, this
Mhm.
is fight or flight stuff. So they're avoiding, but they're thinking they're protecting the relationship. So their goal is still protection, but they're pushing back. The other person we call the pursuer, they're pursuing the connection, and
Yeah.
right, you have this cycle, this pattern. And so, going back to the premarital stuff, right? If pre-marriage therapy is among the most helpful for people before they've ever hit problems, the earlier you come, the more successful it's
Yeah.
going to be, and the less time you're going to spend there. A lot of times, people, like I said, they're going to therapy when it's like, well, this is our last effort, and I would say it probably would be wise for it to be your first effort. If you're trying to figure out how to reconnect or heal and you don't know how, couples go, we're trying really hard, and we go, well, you're trying really hard with things that don't work. So it doesn't
Yeah.
matter how hard you try, it doesn't work, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, one of the things I've heard a lot of people say, and we've seen this as well too, is before they go to therapy, it's almost like they want the therapist to validate who's right and who's wrong,
Sure.
right? We hear
Hmm.
that all the time, and we've actually seen couples go to therapy and say, "Oh, the therapist said that I was right," and it's almost like that validation. But one of the things that I've loved in working with you, and I think this is why you're so successful, is you're not there to take a side, right? You're
Right.
there to be independent. Share a little bit about that and kind of your philosophy there,
Sure.
because we've talked about that off the record a
Mhm.
lot, and I think that's one of the great things that you do so very well. That's maybe different from other therapists as well.
Appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, so a little backstory on that will help is, I mean, my career started in a very unique setting. One, it was in Las Vegas, and it was directing a clinic that was every couple was coming because of sexual betrayal. We know therapeutically that that's the hardest thing for couples to overcome is when there's been a sexual betrayal. And so my career started out with, heavy sexual betrayal and trauma and big, divide in the relationship. And so they were coming though because they wanted to heal the marriage. And so it's like it kind of didn't matter what had divided the marriage, their goal was here. And so early on I started adopting like internally this idea of she's not my client, he's not my client, the marriage is my client. And she's probably going to have to do some things and he's going to have to do some things, and it's all towards this. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, the thing you described, like, do both people play into marital difficulty? For sure. Are there times where one is done more damage than the other? Absolutely. But when we're looking at who created damage, that's a different question than how do we heal a marriage
Yeah.
or how do we have a healthy marriage? So when people come to me, they're going, we want a healthy marriage. I go, cool. Doesn't matter how you got to damage. A healthy marriage requires two people that are willing to do certain things together. And so I hear people's kind of story when they come in of, where they are, and I'm quickly asking them, where do you want to go? And I'll say, do you guys have a vision? A lot of times people don't have a vision for their marriage.
Yeah.
And I'll say, without a vision, it's hard to build something, right? And so I help them get in tune with their vision. And a lot of times people's wants are coming from escaping pain, right? Like, hey, why are you here? I don't want that thing. I go, okay, I want to help you not have that thing in your marriage. What do you want? We want love, we want friendship, we want intimacy, we want playfulness. Cool. There are steps to get there and create that. And so, to your point, when couples come in, I can be honest with like, yeah, that did create damage, and you are that. Couples play this game, we call it find the bad guy, and that's where they're trying
Oh
to
yeah.
tell the therapist, right? And what I do often, and this is where I think a lot of marriages struggle, is they elicit a therapist to take their side, and it's like you
Exactly.
do the work, right? And now it's a you're like adversaries. You're on the opposite sides of each other. My goal is to help couples unite against whatever the problem is. So, for example, like all the time, couples come into marriage and neither one of them knows that, let's call it childhood stuff, is going to affect them. Or I see things where, it's stress from a new career, or they have a new baby that's hard, like unpredictable things that now affect us in ways we didn't anticipate. And if I can help them see that, like, hey, this is not someone's fault necessarily. It's something that's happening to you that you didn't plan on.
Yeah.
How are you two going to face it? And I always say this, like, ideally it's you two with the Lord and you're facing the challenges. And we face challenges, but we don't want to divide us. And this is where most couples come in, is they're divided and they're kind of pointing the finger. Sometimes they both have adopted what we call the identified patient. Husband and wife have decided, like, it's you, and it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's me.
Yeah.
Okay. And even if that's the case, we tend to come to a place of the solution to a healthy marriage is two people engaged in a healthy marriage. What do each of you need to work through so you can bring your whole self? One of the things that was really a helpful shift for me, both professionally but individually, was I had done a lot of quote unquote healing work of the past,
Hmm.
and felt like I worked through a lot of stuff, and I realized, well, I wasn't, let's call it, whole before I needed the healing. Wholeness meant development and growth. And I was like, I came into marriage just not knowing things. I'd never developed the knowledge or the skill set. And what I've found with a lot of couples is when they have the skill sets, it kind of doesn't matter what happened in your past, in your childhood.
So
Um,
true.
and so I've had couples where, one or the other. And this is where it was when I came into the therapeutic world, especially in that hard dynamic. At that time, they were saying, you go do therapy for a year and you go do therapy for a year. And then when you're healthy, now you can do a relationship. And what I started to see was two healthy people don't know how to do a relationship frequently. And I also was in a dynamic where I'm like, you can't go do that for a year and you go do that for a year. You're actually still living together and
Yeah.
you're still
Yeah,
raising children.
exactly.
And you're still like, we still need to help the marriage now. You going living your own life and doing a bunch of therapeutic work on your own, that doesn't change day to day, right? And so over time, I developed what I'd call a new model. I trained in every model you can find, and then I started to go, okay, there's some ways we can do this a little more effectively. And so now when a couple comes in, truly it's pretty quick. Within typically 20, 30 minutes, you see the pattern. And it's there's differences, right? Of because of the pattern, here's the fallout, right? But the repair is very similar. And so now, typically, I encourage a couple, if they can, to set aside 2 days with me, a day and a half. And truly within that time, typically things can be repaired. They're reconnected and they have a vision for the future. It doesn't mean everything's done, but to address the past endlessly doesn't change the past. It still happened. And so my goal is let's repair the end result of the past. Is there a lack of safety? Is there a lack of trust? Is there a need for forgiveness? There's going to be some change, whether that's, new behaviors that maintain safety and trust, or it's new behaviors that, create that intimacy, that closeness.
Yeah.
Um, and then from there, oftentimes, I'm truly when couples do that breakthrough, instead of doing kind of the traditional weekly pattern after that, right, of 50 minutes a week or whatever, typically what I see is I'll meet with them 3 or 4 times, following that, and then they're in honestly a pretty good place because we create a plan and they have new tools, and I help them structure it into real life. And then, I might hear from them a month later, I might hear from them 6 months later, and they've hit a little snag. Some of the more complex things, like if there's a big betrayal, like we're going to work together more steady. And I might do, individual with her, individual with him, and couples. But the nice thing is every couple situation, there's tools that can be applied, and it's not a time thing that is typically the issue. For most couples, a lot of time has passed since their core pain,
Yeah.
and it's like time didn't heal it. We need something different that helps heal. And when we put that in place, my goal is to help couples have what we call a corrective emotional experience. So there was an emotional pain from the past or that's repeating, right? Let's create an experience where you two reconnect and you come together against that old problem and you resolve it. And then you make a commitment to each other. Hey, we know we're different. We don't want to keep going into this divide thing. Let's do things consistently that help us stay connected. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So you've talked a lot about couples that want to, I guess, heal together.
Hmm.
We have a lot of people reach out to us that say, I really want to make this marriage work, but my wife or my husband isn't interested in, talking to a therapist or doing anything like that.
Yep.
One of the things you've been so good at is helping maybe when there's a spouse that really wants to do something and there's a spouse that doesn't, you've been able to help bring them together to help them want to do what you're talking about, which is improve their marriage. Share a little bit about kind of
Sure.
how you do that or how a couple can, get to that point when you have one spouse that isn't interested and the other one that is, because I think
Right.
that's pretty common.
Yeah, that is really common. I mean, nobody likes to fit into a stereotypical box, right? But typically, the person that wants to do therapy is what we would call the anxiously attached person. They really want connection and they want to heal it. The avoidant person, it's not that they don't want to heal the relationship, it's that they think that they're protecting the relationship by not addressing the problems. And
Hmm.
so it's really common to have someone that says, I want to fix this, my spouse, they don't want to do therapy or whatever. What I operate from is they may not want to do therapy, they may not want to read a book with you. They do want a healthy marriage. They do want happiness and intimacy and playfulness. I know that. And so it's not crazy difficult to either coach someone and how do you engage with them in a way that invites them into the marriage. I tell people all the time, I don't care if they come to therapy. The goal of your marriage is not therapy. The goal of your marriage is connection.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's not uncommon for me to be working with one person. Obviously, I'm not doing quote unquote couples therapy. We're still doing relational based healing or
Mhm.
coaching or whatever. And so, for that person that, comes on their own, there's a lot that they can do. One, to engage them in the marriage, but typically two, to eventually get them to come where they're engaged in the process of healing together. There's these core reasons why someone typically won't engage in therapy or healing together. Once that's resolved, even without a therapist, then they're more willing to say, hey, I want that vision too. I'm
Yeah.
willing to work
Yeah.
on that. And so the common thing for me, like when someone says my spouse doesn't want to come, I will say, will you, first I say, are you willing to do the work for the relationship, your growth, your healing, where you can invite them into connection? And you're learning those skills. And if they say yes, I say, will you ask your spouse if they'll meet with me one time so I understand their needs? What helps them feel safe? What helps them feel trust? What are their hurts? So I can guide you on growth and healing that translates to them.
Yeah.
Very frequently, people are willing to have at least one conversation, and in that conversation, I don't come from like, well, your spouse is so, it's like there's hurt here. Help me understand your experience in the relationship. What makes it difficult? What's hurting? And typically, when that is understood and validated, they actually ask me like, what are some options? I'll say, well, we can do some things together. Your spouse is willing to do these things. And I'm very honest with it's going to be better if two people are engaged in this
Hmm.
creating a vision together. And a lot of couples, unfortunately, have lost sight of why they got together and what's available. Couples feel hopeless because they've tried their best and it didn't work. And that's a hard place to be.
Well, and it's usually because they're doing things that don't work and trying things over and over again. Again, I relate to golf just because that's what I grew up doing.
Mhm.
If I'm trying to hit a golf ball a certain way and I'm doing something wrong, I'm most likely not going to improve. It's just going to be doing the same thing over and over again and getting bad results. And I think a lot of times in marriage, we've talked about this where we don't have the tools, right? We didn't get taught how to be married. And so if we don't have the tools, we're going to handle conflict or different things in a certain way. Maybe it's the way we watched our parents do it or the things that we learned growing up. And by
Right,
simply having the right tools or knowing how to um, utilize those tools in those times where we're having conflict or certain things in marriage. I mean, it can just make all the difference in the world.
right. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because um, a lot of times couples will come in and they've read books or they've listened to podcasts or a variety of things. And what I often, and they're like, it's not working. And I'll say, learning about your problem is not the same as learning about the solution. And so I use this analogy because it's common where, I mean, people will come in and they'll have read more books than me on trauma, right? And they like get the neuroscience of it and the emotional component. And I'll go, cool, that's awesome that you understand that. You've learned to become like a neuroscientist, right?
Yeah,
Not a healed person. And so
exactly.
we have the skills to help you heal the trauma, not understand how it came to be. Same thing with couples therapy. Like I'm not training you to be a couples therapist. I'm helping you with the skills to be a good spouse. My skill sets to help as a therapist are not the same as a good husband, good wife thing.
Yeah,
And it's interesting because I mean truly so much of what I know as a therapist it doesn't translate into my marriage. My wife doesn't want me to be a trauma therapist or what, right? She wants me to be a spouse. And so training people, I should back up before I use the word training. First, what does a good spouse look like to each person? Right? If my high value is I want to be a good spouse, that is specific to my wife. What does my wife want and need to feel like she has a good spouse? If I can hear that, then I can start to adjust towards that. If she's willing to do the flip side, hey, Austin, I want to be a good spouse to you. What matters there? And I share openly. Now we can give to each other where so often when couples are hurting, it's like they're both drowning. It's not a selfish thing. It's like the relational air is unavailable. And I've heard this analogy of like I feel like I'm sinking and I'm barely, popping out of the water and getting air. And you're over there and you won't give me air. And the other person will say, I'm experiencing the same thing. And so what we can help with is we help them come out of the water, breathe, get, okay, I'm okay. This does feel urgent because I'm without you. Can I get some of you today? And that's what a good therapist does is you leave that session with, oh, I got what I need from you, understanding, care, an apology, a commitment for the future.
Yeah.
All that type of stuff happens ideally in session. Then you go home and you're learning to maintain that. And you might get disconnected by life again. And over time, you stop needing the therapist.
At least if you
Uh,
have the tools, right? Yeah, you
right.
have the tools to know what to do when that happens. I mean,
Right.
that's the key is learning those things.
Right. A
You know,
lot of, oh,
oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. Go
I
ahead.
was gonna say a lot of couples now at this point in my career, I've learned I try to help them create a successful system that they can just put on repeat. Like one of the most successful things I see couples do once they get reconnected is they create a weekly I call it a couples council. Weekly date night, we hear a lot about that. That's
Oh yeah.
significantly important. The couples council, in addition to that, is probably one of the most valuable things because you're looking ahead and you're choosing connection. You're choosing teamwork, whether it's parenting or finances or household or individual needs, like that looking forward together is bonding just as much as a date night for a lot of couples. I
Yeah.
thought you had a question before I said that. Sorry.
No, no, you're totally good. I actually forgot what I was going to say, but yeah,
That's all
no,
right.
no, no, no problem at all.
I'll
Um,
sh- I got one more thought with that real quick. For couples that are in distress, one of the things I would do if you're not on the same page with, wanting something different is one of you take the time to envision the type of relationship you would want and what you think your spouse would want. um, and then share that. Hey, I love you, and we've been through a lot, and right now is kind of difficult. I would like this, and it's the invitation. What would you like to add to this? Like, can we create this vision? Um, there's reasons sometimes people won't engage in that. It's typically hurt or fear or hopelessness or something like that. But that softness of, I want something with you because I love you and there's more available to us, that often softens people and they're willing to engage. And then where a therapist can come in is, look, if you've never walked that mountain or you've never created that, that relationship, we've helped hundreds of people do that in a variety of situations. And the analogy that I really like, this came from Sue Johnson. She said, the therapist is not the expert of your life. The therapist is someone who, the vision in my eyes is, I'm standing on this mountain and you guys are on that mountain, and I've climbed that mountain before, and I can see where you're at because my perspective is different, and I can say, hey, look out for this thing, look
yeah,
out for that
yeah,
thing.
exactly.
Let's prepare you for what's coming, and and then you're prepared for it. And you know how to navigate it, emotionally, spiritually, with intimacy, all these types of things. And so the connotation or the stereotype of therapy is it's for broken people. I think I'm hoping that's going away, where people are seeing it more as like, hey, this journey is hard, and if someone can guide us back to connection and back to love, and then we know how to maintain it with the tools and the skills, and knowing, like I said, I have couples, I won't hear from them for 6 months or 2 years, and very frequently it's not something they've done to each other. It's, we're navigating a new thing. We had a new career or we had a child get sick. Can you help us have this conversation? And sometimes it's, do you have any, new ideas or things that we can, sure, like we can navigate that. But I would say if people can see, like when I have couples come into the therapeutic process, my first goal is to help them see that they can do it.
Hmm.
And I would say that's probably the most helpful thing early on is they might not believe it can happen. Like they're like, we've tried everything. And I say, I know it can happen. I've seen it happen. I've helped it happen. I've personally done these things of healing growth. you guys can for sure do this. When a couple hears that, very frequently like,
Oh, yeah.
okay, game, on, right?
Yeah,
So
and that's one of the things I love. You know, we've obviously interviewed a lot of therapists, worked with a lot of therapists in this line of work, and one of the things I've really liked about working with you is you're so much more positive, telling people that hey, there is hope, and you can get over it, and you don't need to wait a year to have a happy marriage, right? Like you can start having that right away with implementing the right things and working together, and I love that message of hope, and you can have the marriage that you want. I think there's a lot of people out there that feel like, man, my marriage is in such a dark place. It's going to be too hard to get out of. And
right.
the reality is yeah, everyone's marriage is different and things that have happened and betrayals and trust broken and things like that. But for a lot of people, things can get turned around very quickly with the right tools. I mean, Amy and I have seen that in our own relationship, like literally 30 days, like our marriage felt like it was completely different, right? And yeah, it still took some healing and things over time, but for those of you out there listening that feel like you're in a very low and dark place, there is hope, number one. Number two, and it can happen a lot quicker than you think. It's just a matter of like we've been talking about on this podcast, is having the right tools and knowing how to use those tools in your relationship. Because again, like Austin's talked about, we were never taught how to be married. We were never taught how to, um, live with this person that had a totally different upbringing and totally different experiences and things that happened to them. And so it is a journey, but again, with the right tools, the right guidance, it can be a wonderful journey instead of a hard,
Yeah.
dark journey. Well, it's always going to be hard, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's interesting because I mean, I look back on my early career and kind of where that started, and um, you know, I am an optimistic person by nature, but I also try not to be unrealistic. And seeing so many couples come from the depths of pain and I mean, what would be described as hell, and not only having the opportunity to help them, but seeing what they were doing, like so much of it's not actually in a therapist's hand. We can help immensely, but right, we have 50 minutes or an hour and a half in traditional therapy. That means you're doing a lot outside of that. And so my goal is when you're with me, I help you reconnect, give you new tools and skills that help you be less likely to disconnect. And if you do, you come back quicker. And for couples to see that like it's normal that couples are going to disconnect, but having the skill to reconnect and disconnect less often, that reduces so much anxiety and fear. And honestly, when couples see, oh, this can be done even with, our differences, which every couple is different, every man and woman, this idea of becoming one, blending masculine and feminine, that's no easy task for anybody because you're totally different people with different needs. And marriage requires that selflessness where it's a give. And it's so much easier to give when you feel like you're both invested and you're benefiting from,
Yeah,
that bond.
yeah,
So,
yeah. I
yeah,
love it.
absolutely. Now at this place, with 15 years of experience, I see a couple come in and um, honestly, typically the best thing is I say, let's spend a couple days together and you'll be in a much better place. We don't bypass the pain. We don't force you to connect. We we typically are removing the barriers to connection. It might be fear, anger, mistrust. A lot of times it's something like very frequently it's this happened 8 years ago. This happened 12 years ago. This happened, right? Let's heal that. Let's talk through it. Let's get some understanding, some change, and move forward to something better that will prevent what happened 8 years ago from happening again, right? And I think when couples see that there's a path and they can be guided down that path and it doesn't have to take forever and they can start feeling joy sooner than they think, like you said, it's like, why would we not want that if it's
Yeah,
available? And then you start living again. And it's cool to see that, see what couples can do. And I don't want to oversimplify it. Like there's still work. I just see that like you can spread that work out over a year and struggle, or like let's get that work done.
yeah,
Uh, and
exactly.
and when couples get it done, it's now they're enjoying life, and that's cool to see. So
Yeah. Well, we hope this podcast has been beneficial for those couples out there. Like I said, Amy and I are constantly getting messages. We know this is something needed. So we wanted to just have Austin come on and share, what can kind of be expected and how to address things maybe when your spouse isn't on board, things like that. And we'll have many more podcasts ahead with Austin covering so many of the different topics and things that you guys email us about. And we also have some exciting news that we'll be announcing here pretty soon, that we've been working on with Austin as well. So we hope all of you enjoyed the podcast. Again, reach out to us if you want to get in touch with Austin. Reach out to us, Amy at ultimateintimacy.com. We'll put you in touch with Austin with the time and availability that he has. And thanks again, Austin, so much for coming on. And until next time, we hope all of you find ultimate intimacy in your relationship.